The purpose of the 1968 Act was to provide sites for gypsies. At the time, it was thought there were 15,000 of them. That figure was wrong. Today, it's thought there are 50,000, and that's probably wrong too. And after 12 years of the Act, there are only 179 sites like this, enough for only a quarter of all the gypsies there are. Oxney Road site in Peterborough isn't typical. Most sites have nowhere for visiting relatives to park, nowhere to work, nowhere for the children to play. Badly sited, often worse planned, adding to rather than diminishing the gypsies' problems. Peter Mercer is secretary of the East Anglian Gypsy Council, not a do-gooder, a self-educated gypsy.
If you're at the side of the road in a small encampment, then you have the social structure where everybody mixes, you have the fire outside, you do your cooking outside. You come on a place like this and you can't do no cooking outside, you're not allowed to light a fire. And so therefore you get a sense of, it's like moving from a terraced house into a, shall we say, into a block of flats where everybody complain. The fact is that once they move from the terraced houses, they lose all their comradeship and friendliness, and families tend to be alienated from each other.
Every proposed new gypsy site is opposed with an intensity that verges on the hysterical. There are no votes in gypsies, so county and local councillors, faced with a statutory obligation to provide sites, have put them near sewage works, near rubbish dumps, near motorways, anywhere no one else would live. And the sites themselves aren't what the gypsies wanted, because nobody thought to ask them what they did want. What do the gypsies actually want?
The million-dollar question. Each gypsy is representative of himself. The 2 or 3 organisations that we speak to want primarily 2 things. Half want the open space site with just basically a tap and skip and a freedom to come and go with little or no rent and restrictions. The other, which Oxney Road is now perhaps a fairly good example, is a fairly regimented site where they have got security, where they have all the facilities, and they are prepared to pay the rent for it. But there is a clear diversion of really 2 sides, that want a fixed site and the other that wants much more purely an open stopping place.
What do you find your main problem is in dealing with the gypsies?
Trust, I think, on both sides. They've had many years of being harassed, and they are wary, very wary of local authorities and their officers. We, in turn, because they are a minority people and have reputed to have caused trouble, are equally wary of them. It's a lack of understanding on both sides. In many places, like East Anglia, prejudice against the gypsies is intense. The Race Relations Board would have something to say if any pub said no blacks. For the gypsies, deafening silence.
The landlord in the Red Lion didn't want to be interviewed, but he told us that if a gypsy went in there, he'd serve him, and he would simply turn out anybody who was causing trouble, whether they were gypsy or not.
Well, I've been in there and been refused service in the past. This is quite a few months ago. I will accept that maybe it's a new landlord since then, but it's obvious by the sign on the front of the wall what the intentions of the pub is.
He says that he's only been there a few months and that the sign was there when he came and he just left it there.
Well, he has every opportunity to take it down. It's not in fashion to have a board of that kind on the wall. Throughout the whole area of Fenland, they're very common indeed.
Obviously, the landlords must feel they have good reason for refusing to serve travellers. I mean, in fact, aren't travellers their own worst enemy, in as much as they do tend to drink too much and do tend to get obstreperous?
No, I don't accept that. You see, with every community, and that's with the settled community as well as the travelling community, if a man causes trouble and is part of a crowd and causes trouble, then by all means evict him. But to pick on a group of people and say, right, we won't have any of that group in the public house, this is wrong.
Gypsies are commonly accused of being dirty, light-fingered, sometimes frightening, often causing a nuisance pestering for water. Peter Mercer lives on a site, but there are so few sites that most gypsies break the law every night when they stop. And the old traditional gypsy stopping places are disappearing, as in Peterborough, drowned by new housing developments.
All this area at one time, the Ortons, used to be traditional stopping places for gypsy people in Peterborough. Whereas you see, it's all been built on, and slowly but surely we're being pushed out. There's some families can remember when all this was green fields and the odd farmhouse, and where they used to stop, where their children were brought up. But now, of course, development takes place over Gypsy people.
There are thought to be 100 Gypsy families around Peterborough. There's one site for 26, this at Paston Ridings, with space for perhaps another 50. Except that this one is unmanaged. The Gypsies haven't done much to improve it. Now it's the sort of place that confirms all the worst suspicions about their habits.
Obviously, with it being an official stopping place, you have people going and coming, and the result being that quite a few of them do leave rubbish behind, which gives the regular residents a bad name, and people seeing only, shall we say, see this from the road, they think that all Gypsy people are the same, and that they leave rubbish and for other people to clean up after them. Quite a few of our community are dealers, general dealers, such as horse dealers and motor dealers and this type of thing. The majority of the scrap metal you see laying around is not dirt or rubbish, it's actual people's living. We collect scrap and rags and such things as this, and which were then recycled into new steel and such things as this. So we're quite wrong when they say quite a few things about us, that we are parasites and other things like this.
Lack of stopping places and sites means, inevitably, illegal sites.
Well, this is a site that's been set up because the Paston Riding site isn't fit to live on. They're hoping to stop in here for at least a few weeks before they're evicted.
Worshipful man of the city of Cambridge does strictly charge and command all manner of persons to keep...
The Midsummer Fair at Cambridge. The Gypsies claim it used to be theirs. Nowadays, they are segregated. Their camp 2 miles away in a meadow.
God save the Queen! Oh yes! Oh yes! Oh yes!
By the right worshipful Mayor of Cambridge and Chief Governor of this fair, doth strictly charge and command all merchants and other persons that be repaired or shall repair to this fair here holden this day, to keep Her Majesty's peace, that all idle and evil disposed persons within this fair do depart out of the same forthwith after this proclamation, upon pain of imprisonment and such other punishment as by the laws of this land may be inflicted upon them.
I know I shouldn't say that, but I'm regret to say that. I thought it was only me.
For councillors and local dignitaries, Gypsies are a nuisance, an irritation that nags like a toothache and can't be cured with an aspirin. And yet, with all our fancy dress of respectability, we are equally an irritation and a nuisance to them. You don't often see many Gypsies gathered together. By nature, they're a nomadic and solitary breed. For them, fairs like Cambridge are a holiday, a place where Gypsies gather from all over the country. They'll pay the £20 a week to camp for the pleasure of getting together. Didecoys, bumpers, Irish tinkers, Gypsies, all travellers, all different. Some rich, making small fortunes out of tarmacking and scrap dealing. Others earning a comfortable living out of seasonal farm work and a bit of dealing. A few, today very few, scraping by on the traditional Gypsy crafts of peg making and knife grinding.
It's like in ordinary society where you have your poor person, you have your middle class and your upper class. We tend to call them rich gypsies or flash gypsies and this type of thing. the English gypsy range, you've got the different groups. You've got what we call the Romani group, dark-skinned and black-haired, and quite a few of them think they're the last gypsy, you know, remaining, or their families. And of course then you've got your other group, probably brought up from the Manus groups, and the Yenish and Sinti, which, you know, sprang from the continent. One has to remember that originally there was no gypsies in England. They all came over from the continent during the migration. The Irish Tinkers are a group who tend to stick on their own. They're very much maligned, and unfortunately. Not only do they get it in the neck from local councils and other people in local authorities, they also, in a lot of cases, they find that the English gypsy people are against them. But I feel they're just as important in the structure as the English traveller is.